What's truly the best ride in Epcot? We're ranking them all. Scientifically, of course. Might surprise you, might even anger you. For the record, when I sent the shot list for this video to Fry Bucket and one of our video producers, Megan, their response was, what? Bold. And I'm telling you, it's the math. I can't lie about the math, but that #1 slot, pretty surprising. Epcot is Disney World's second oldest park with a theme on communication, technology, and a bit of an edutainment vibe. That's education and entertainment together. I know, exciting. There are 18 different attractions in this park. That's rides and shows, anything that Disney classifies as an attraction. We're going to attempt to rank them all both scientifically and objectively, so trying to keep my own opinions out of it. To do this, we're going to be ranking them on different scores: theming and experience, ride system and tech, nostalgia and popularity, accessibility, and must-do-ness. Each attraction will be scored on 1 to 5 in each factor for a total possible score of 25. And that's how we're going to find out what the best ride in all of Epcot is. Awesome Planet is a film about, well, the planet Earth. Some of the environmental effects that humanity has had on our planet. It's a very beautiful film, a short film, but it is going to be in the lowest place for a couple of reasons. Theming wise, this show's just in a theater. There's some beautiful aspects to the building, but those aren't even really exclusive to Awesome Planet. It's just the theater the Awesome Planet happens to be in, so a 1 out of 5 on theming. Similarly, the ride system is truly just a theater. Nothing special there from the ride system or tech-wise, so it's going to be a 1 out of 5 on tech. Next up, we've got the nostalgia and popularity category. Awesome Planet is actually relatively new and not a nostalgic show, not very popular. Another 1 out of 5. Now, where Awesome Planet excels is actually on accessibility. Anybody can check out this show. Our final category, of course, is must-do-ness, which I know sounds silly, but I thought about calling it mustiness and quickly realized I could not do that. On the must-do scale, this one is going to be a 1 out of 5 as well. Awesome Planet is perhaps the most skippable attraction in Epcot, though it is a very cool film. All in, this attraction is going to get a score of 9. In second to last place, we have the Disney and Pixar Short Film Festival. This is a brief show attraction where you do watch Disney and Pixar shorts. It does change. There have been different shorts that show during the show. Right now, it's the Mickey short Get a Horse, Piper, and Feast. This one is a 1 on theming. It is located in the Magic Eye Theater, which isn't really themed at all for shorts. You can see it's kind of just a theater entrance in here, just a spare building. We've got a little bit of theming on the walls, but nothing too special. So definitely a 1 out of 5 on theming. Ride system and tech-wise, this is another one that's just a movie show. From a nostalgia perspective, this one is actually going to get a 2 out of 5, and that's because Mickey shorts and Pixar shorts tend to be pretty nostalgic. I know that sometimes when I see a short that was really exciting for my family when I was younger, I do want to come in here. Things like Birds on a Wire, or the Magician one, I really like that one too. Like the other theater shows, anyone can enjoy this one, so it is a 5 out of 5 in accessibility, and I'm sure you can guess on the must-do scale, it's a 1. This one is certainly a skip. In fact, you can watch these shorts on Disney Plus, most of them, so you're better off going to one of the shows that you can only see in Epcot. Number 16 is Reflections of China. This one is so low on the list, you may have walked by it, but this is a Circle Vision 360 film, which means the screen goes all the way around the whole theater about China, and it is relatively old, this film. They were supposed to update it with one called Wonders of China, but we haven't heard any updates about that new film in a while. Reflections of China is coming in at a 2 out of 5 in the theming department. The building is absolutely gorgeous. There's actually perfect acoustics in this frontward dome here, and it is one of just the most gorgeous parts of the China Pavilion. But the building and the theming is absolutely beautiful. It's very traditionally Chinese. The theater itself, a little lackluster. It's pretty much just a theater with a giant screen, which is why it's only hitting that 2 of 5. Nostalgia-wise, I can't say a ton of people are running to Epcot for the nostalgia and popularity of Reflections of China. It's just kind of a very cool element to the China Pavilion, but not necessarily one that people love. However, accessibility-wise, it is going to be a 5 out of 5, as anyone can head into the theater, whether you're in a wheelchair or an ACV. You can just stroll on in, whatever. As you can probably guess, though, this one is going to be a 1 out of 5 on the must-do scale. If you don't have a ton of time in Epcot, I highly recommend skipping this in favor of some other must-dos. Reflections of China, all in, going to be 11 points. You can see why it's so low on the scale. Up next on our list, we are in the Canada Pavilion for Canada Far and Wide. Canada Far and Wide is tucked way, way in the back of the Canada Pavilion, and the outside of the ride building is really, really gorgeous. It's that reason that this does get a 2-1 theming, despite the fact that the theater itself is really just a Circle Vision theater. That's also why the ride system score is the same. It's a 2 because that Circle Vision tech is pretty cool, but it's nothing all that special. Nostalgia and popularity. Canada Far and Wide is gonna get a 1 out of 5. It's certainly not very popular, although I know somebody who goes to ride it every single time he's here, but that's maybe a stranger choice. Now accessibility is gonna be a 5 out of 5, as anyone can enjoy this without transferring out of a wheelchair. No height requirement, of course, to watch a Circle Vision film. And must-do-ness is gonna be a 1. While I do actually really like Canada Far and Wide, and it is a new iteration of the Canada film, it was just redone in recent years, so if you haven't done it yet, I would say you should. Canada Far and Wide does come in with a score of 11, the same score as Reflections of China, but because it is a little bit newer, it does get to slide 1 ranking spot up above China. Next on the list, we have the Beauty and the Beast sing-along. This one is pretty low. It's a little show attraction, basically, just a little movie. And it is fun because it is a sing-along to the Disney classic Beauty and the Beast with Belle and the Beast. It's got an interesting twist on the story that involves LeFou, which I find a little questionable, but a lot of people really like. For theming, this one is gonna get a low 1. And that's because it's just a movie in a theater. There's not a lot of theming elements. I will say I absolutely love the exhibit that's in the waiting area for this attraction. If you go in, even if you're not wanting to see the sing-along, you can see that they have the French literature page to stage and screen exhibit, and it's very, very cool. It has lots of stuff from Hunchback of Notre Dame on stage, from La Boheme on stage, Sleeping Beauty, so I recommend checking that out whether you see the show or not. For ride system and tech, this one is going to be a simple 1 out of 5. It's just a movie on a screen. There's no 4D effects, there's no special screen system. Nostalgia and popularity, this ride is going to be middle of the road at a 3. It does feature a classic Disney film that is wildly popular. Frybucket absolutely loves this show because of her love of Beauty and the Beast, so gotta give it a 3 on that nostalgia factor. Yeah. Accessibility is a 5, since you can certainly stay in your ECV or wheelchair as you head into the theater, and it is accessible to the entire family. For that must-do factor, it is going to be a 1. This is another of those shows that if you really, really love Beauty and the Beast, could be worth doing, but if not, it's probably skippable in favor of something a lot more exciting. And with that, Beauty and the Beast live on stage is going to be our final option, scored at an 11. So not too shabby for a screen show, but we've got a lot more exciting attractions to come. 13th place is going to be the American Adventure. So this show is in the American Adventure Pavilion. It is a stage show with animatronic actors. It is not so popular, but it is a classic attraction here in EPCOT with featuring a lot of historical figures. Ben Franklin and Mark Twain hosted as a nice duo. On theming and experience, this one is going to get a 2. It is themed to be an American historical building, and then it's a very nice theater. So it does get a 2 for a lot of those details, and the experience gets a little bump because of the fact that this is an excellent attraction to take a nap on. But it's nothing spectacular, especially compared to some of the very immersive theming elsewhere in the park, so 2 out of 5. As for the technology and the ride system, there is no ride system. But technology is going to get a 3 out of 5. Despite the fact that this technology is old, the way this show works is actually very, very cool. So there are a ton of animatronics, including the first ever animatronic to go upstairs with one of the Ben Franklin animatronics. Also, the way that the different scenes come in and out of the stage is incredibly cool, and it's the reason the American Adventure building is so big. They're on these massive platforms that have to go up full stories to slot into place for the show. I did actually do the Backstage Magic tour when that was an offering, and I got to go behind the scenes at American Adventure and watch as those different elements raised up into the theater. It is unbelievable. So for that reason, that tech is still gonna get a 3 out of 5. Nostalgia and popularity, this one's gonna be a 1. I'm not sure the last time this theater was filled. As for accessibility, it's going to be 5. Anyone can watch this, anybody can enjoy it, and you don't have to transfer from a wheelchair or an ACV or anything. When it comes to must-do-ness, this one is going to get a 2 out of 5. It's not a 1. You're going to want to do this one at least once in your life because it is a very cool show, very cool animatronics, and it's a very interesting look at American history. So it's definitely not quite down at the 1, but it's pretty close. So 2 out of 5 for must-do-ness. Coming in at number 12, Mission Space. This is a simulator attraction with two actual sides to the attraction. You have two different experiences. There's the green side, less intense, and the orange side, more intense. The orange side is a centrifuge. It simulates space flight. Astronauts who helped develop this ride so that it was one of the most similar experiences they ever did to actually going to space. It's gonna have just a 3 out of 5 on theming, and that is because though it's a very cool building, the inside is an awesome tribute to spaceflight and astronauts, it's not the most immersive or memorable theming in the park or across Disney World. In fact, some more interesting theming is actually at the accompanying restaurant, Space 220, where it really does seem like you're dining in space and they have a massive space window. As the ride experience and tech goes, Mission Space is gonna get a 4 out of 5. The fact that there are two different experiences to accommodate different intensity levels, the fact that the orange side is something that astronauts consider to be very similar to space travel, it's such a unique experience. You really do experience some intense G-forces. Those are all reasons that this is going to get a pretty high score when it comes to the ride system and the tech. Nostalgia and popularity wise, this one has a pretty low score of a 1 out of 5. Mission Space, though I love it, is not one that is considered extremely popular, and though it's been around a while, it's not one that people kind of feel that sense of nostalgia for. Accessibility is going to be one of the lowest scores on our list with an 2 out of 5. Even the less intense experience is not suitable for all riders, and that more intense experience is so intense that it doesn't really make sense for a lot of people to ride it at all. Anyone who has challenges with motion sickness or any health problems that G-forces might exacerbate, which is a lot of them. So very, very low on the accessibility score. Must-do scale, this one is gonna get a 3 out of 5. It is more of a must-do than a lot of the shows around Epcot, but it's definitely still kind of smack in the middle. I'm in the Seas Pavilion for what is just shy of our top 10. In 11th place, Turtle Talk with Crush. Turtle Talk with Crush is a very unique attraction where you do actually interact with Crush live. It's an audience, kiddos get to sit in the front, and Crush does talk and interact with you. He can say your name and everything like that because Crush is really there. It's some very cool Disney magic and certainly worth doing if you've got a kiddo. This one is gonna get a 3 out of 5 on theming. It actually does have a very unique theme and experience. You can learn all about sea creatures as you head in, which is very edutainment, very Epcot. And it sits right in the Seas Pavilion where nearby you can go see real manatees and real sea creatures, real fish, real eels, the whole shebang. Crush's talking technology is super, super cool. It's unique. Similar to Monsters, Inc. Laugh Floor, Crush really talks to you, and that can be super magical for a kid and even for an adult who might love Finding Nemo, like me. So that's going to be a 3 out of 5 just from that really immersive, really cool technology. As for that nostalgia, it's going to be a 3 of 5. This one is not a super popular attraction, but it can certainly get full, and Finding Nemo is getting to the point that it's a bit of a nostalgic attraction. Anybody can experience this attraction, giving it that 5 in accessibility. Whether or not you can leave a wheelchair, you can go see this show, and it's going to be a 1 on the must-do-ness, as you really don't need to go to Turtle Talk with Crush to have a fulfilling Epcot day. It's a nice addition if you can make it happen, but I only just did it for the first time, so it's certainly not a must-do unless you have someone who's super into sea turtles or Finding Nemo. Guess what? We've made it to the top 10. And in 10th place, Grand Fiesta Tour. Yes, Donald, you made the top 10. Everybody can breathe a sigh of relief now. Grand Fiesta Tour is a slow-moving boat ride located inside the Mexico Pyramid in the Mexico Pavilion. It is themed to the three caballeros. That's Donald, Panchito, and Jose. And the plot is, where's Donald? Donald's gone missing. You gotta find him, along with the other two. And then there's a performance of the three caballeros at the end. For theming and experience, Grand Fiesta Tour is actually going to get a 4 out of 5. Despite being a pretty low-key ride, it has some beautiful theming, and it's a lovely experience. This pyramid in the back, pyramid within a pyramid, is actually a part of the attraction, and it's a slow-moving boat ride in the air conditioning. So a really great way to take a break from your day, and definitely a 4 to 5 on that theming. Ride experience and tech-wise, it's gonna be a 2 out of 5. Though it is a pleasant ride, most of the ride is screens and theming elements. So you get to see Donald doing things around Mexico, but just on screens as you cruise by in a boat. Not the most high-tech or exciting ride system. You do get to see animatronics of Jose, Panchito, and Donald at the end, but it's pretty mid-tier when it comes to the tech. Nostalgia is gonna be a 4 out of 5. People love Donald, people love the three caballeros, and this one is very nostalgic. In fact, if Disney does announce a retheme of this one, like they should do Coco, Cough Cough Please, then I think that a lot of people would be pretty upset since they do love the nostalgic factor of this ride. Accessibility is going to be a 5 out of 5 since wheelchair users can actually stay in their wheelchair for this one, and it's a fun ride for the whole family. And finally, the must-do-ness is going to be a 2 of 5. Though it is a delight, its real must-do qualities are great if you really need an air conditioning break, and otherwise, it's a fine one to skip. All in all, Grand Fiesta Tour is going to get a score of 17. Not too shabby for this classic attraction. In 9th place, The Seas with Nemo and Friends, a dark ride that takes you through a lower stakes version of the Finding Nemo story with Marlin and Dory. Theming wise, this attraction is going to get a 3. The reason for that is that the Finding Nemo theming is very nice, but the real theming of this area is actually that it is the Seas Pavilion with an aquarium, which is very cool. It just isn't necessarily Nemo specific. The Nemo specific additions do feel like additions. The ride system is going to get a 3 as well. It is an Omnimover attraction. Omnimover is a ride vehicle that is continually moving and is able to direct the rider's sight where the ride Imagineers want you to be looking. So it's a very cool ride system. It's old technology, but it's still very cool. On top of that, there is a point where they project onto fish tanks, which is very, very cool. This is not a very popular ride, but Finding Nemo is getting to the point where it's a bit nostalgic, meaning that this one does land at a 3 out of 5 on the nostalgia scale as well. When it comes to accessibility, great news, this one does have wheelchair access, which means it is a 5 out of 5 on the accessibility scale. And of course, on the must-do-ness, this one's going to be a solid 3. It is worth doing, but it doesn't necessarily land on everyone's must-do list. So just a nice 3 out of 5. Our next stop, the Imagination Pavilion for Journey into Imagination with Figment. Journey into Imagination with Figment is a slow-moving ride that takes you along with Dr. Nigel Channing and Figment through the Imagination Institute to talk about the senses. And then Figment does derail your train a little bit to teach you about imagination, but I don't blame him. Imagination's way cooler than sight or sound. A lot of this attraction's winning notes in the theming department comes from the queue, and a couple of the set elements on the ride. You are headed into the Imagination Institute. You're greeted with a beautiful reception with many a reference to different movies that Disney owns. You can see Professor Philip Brainerd, Professor Wayne Zelinsky, and of course Dr. Nigel Channing, the star of this ride. Figment flies in the ceiling. It's just a very well-themed queue area, and this level of attention to detail and the thematic style of the queue continues onto the ride. For theming, this one does get a 3, as it does have just a really cool, intricate ride building. However, that theming is a little outdated. Some of it is a little shabby, which is why it's not higher. As ride system and tech goes, this is another one that gets a few points simply for how various it is. There's a lot of interesting tech in here. They use the senses in really great ways. There's smells. The ride vehicles rotate to show you the part of the attraction you should be looking at. Though people do miss the previous iteration of this ride, the original iteration, Journey into Imagination, this ride is still nostalgic for a lot of people. Figment is very nostalgic for a lot of people. Netting him a 4 out of 5. Accessibility is going to be a 5 out of 5. This attraction can accommodate guests who cannot leave their wheelchair, which is amazing. And then finally, must-do-ness is going to be a 3 out of 5. It's in the middle. It's a ride, so it's a little more must-do than shows, but it's still something that could be skipped if you don't care too much about Figment. In 7th place, Test Track, presented by Chevrolet. Test Track is a car-themed attraction in which you test out a sim vehicle of your own design and cruise, as you can hear it going by, around on that outdoor track at 60 miles per hour, fastest ride in Disney World. Theming and experience-wise, this one is going to be rated a 4 out of 5. It does have very involved theming. It feels like a very futuristic attraction, and the experience is relatively comprehensive with interactive elements and a variety of tests inside the ride that feel like different ride experiences. Nostalgia and popularity-wise, this one is going to get a 3. Test Track has been around for a long time, and it has actually shifted in theming. So it used to be sponsored by General Motors with a test dummy theme and is now the sim car theme sponsored by Chevrolet specifically. So it has had that change in theme, but it's still very, very popular. It tends to have one of the longest waits in EPCOT. Accessibility wise, this one is going to get a 3 out of 5. Though it's not as intense as something like Guardians of the Galaxy. It doesn't typically cause motion sickness issues. It is fast, so it's not good for everyone to ride it, and you do have to transfer out of a wheelchair to be able to ride it. So not the most accessible attraction once again. On the must-do-ness scale, it's a 4 out of 5. Not everyone feels like this ride is a must-do on their trip, but most people do, which is why it has those long lines. So, 4 out of 5. We have once again returned to the Land Pavilion for Living with the Land. This is a boat attraction that takes you through the real greenhouses here in EPCOT and shows you a little bit about some more progressive growing techniques they use here. Now for theming and experience, this one is going to get a whopping 4 out of 5. Though the theming is a little on the sparse side here in the Land Pavilion, the experience of this ride is so educational, it is so relaxing, and that's why it's a lot of people's favorite and part of the reason it's ranked so high on this list. The ride system and the tech is going to get a 2. It is a boat ride and there is some really cool growing tech in the ride, but nothing from the actual ride itself that is super out there from a ride system and tech perspective. From a nostalgia and popularity perspective, Living with the Land does get a 3 out of 5. This is a nostalgic ride for a lot of people and it's very popular. However, it is mostly popular with Disney people, and I know that's you guys watching this video and I get it. You think it should be rated higher, but with people who don't know Disney, who don't love Disney or Disney World, Living with the Land does not rank quite as high, so that's why it's in the middle of the road. 5th spot, oh my gosh, top 5. Good job, Soarin'. Theming wise, Soarin' has a 3. It's got a really comprehensive theme of being like an airline, from the cast member costumes to the trivia you can play in line, which definitely gives it a bonus, all the way to Patrick Warburton giving you the safety spiel right before you get on the ride, the pre-show. As for the ride system and the technology, this one is going to be a 5 out of 5. Soarin' lifts you up in seats that I think feel a little bit like sitting in a porch swing, but lift you up very high in front of a huge screen for it to immersively feel like you might be hang gliding around the world. There are scents and haptic effects to help make this feel like it's actually real, and it's a very pleasant experience that a lot of people enjoy, especially moms. So that's gonna be a 5 out of 5. Nostalgia and popularity is gonna be a 3. So this is not a very nostalgic attraction. It does have a lot of popularity and people do tend to want to make sure that Soarin' is a part of their EPCOT day, and with good reason, since it is such a relaxing ride. Accessibility wise, Soarin' is not quite perfect with just a 4 out of 5. Though most can enjoy this attraction, there is a height requirement and wheelchair users do need to transfer. But it's not particularly intense unless you have a very serious fear of heights, so most people can enjoy it, gaining it that 4. And finally, our must-do factor is 5 out of 5. Soarin' is considered a must-do by most when they come to EPCOT, and it probably should be considered a must-do by you, unless you have that fear of heights or don't meet the height requirement. Are you keeping track? That means a score of 20. Pretty impressive score, fitting for the top 5. Coming in 4th place, just missing that top 3, Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. I know what you're thinking. That's my favorite ride in EPCOT. It should be number 1. I agree with you, but the math doesn't. Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind is a Guardians of the Galaxy themed roller coaster, completely indoor. It is an omni coaster, so spins 360 degrees as you ride through, and it's a story coaster, so there is sort of a save the galaxy situation happening as well. Let's talk theming first. The theming of this one really does hit. Surprisingly, a lot of people criticize this ride as not being a great fit for EPCOT, but what they've done with the story makes it fit in pretty well. The story of this ride is that you are visiting the wonders of Xandar Pavilion in EPCOT, aka a Xandarian pavilion, just like you would find with countries in the World Showcase, Xandar being a planet that's featured heavily in Guardians of the Galaxy. You end up getting teleported up to a Xandarian ship. All of these elements are super immersive, and the pre-show is a shocking level of immersion. So on theming, this one is gonna get a 5 out of 5. While we're on the subject of that pre-show, let's talk about the ride system and the technology. Not only does the pre-show have an impressive technological surprise, the ride itself is an entirely new coaster system with the Omni Coaster vibe to it, making the tech a 5 out of 5. Also, I don't know that I've ever ridden a roller coaster as smooth as this one. The screens on the attraction help to immerse you in the story without getting in the way of the true roller coaster experience. As nostalgia and popularity go, this one's getting a 4 out of 5. That's because though this ride isn't super nostalgic, Guardians of the Galaxy hasn't been around very long. It's a new ride in EPCOT. It is incredibly popular. Easily the most popular ride in EPCOT. Currently still just using a virtual queue and individual lightning lane reservation. So extremely popular. If you want to ride this ride, you're going to want to join that virtual queue starting at 7 a.m. It opens up right at 7. Be ready in the My Disney Experience app. For more tips on this, check out any of our EPCOT Ride Challenge videos where we show how the virtual queue works in its entirety. Now, this attraction does have our lowest accessibility score of any, which is why it's only 4th on this list. It is a 2 out of 5 on accessibility. Not only do you need to transfer from a wheelchair to be able to ride this ride, but it is also a relatively intense roller coaster with a good amount of spinning. It's not suitable for a lot of people who have issues with motion sickness, vertigo, and things like that. So it's definitely a trickier one from those angles. But if you are able to ride, this one is absolutely considered a must-do, netting it a 5 out of 5 on the must-do-ness chart. Hindered just a touch by the fact that it's not suitable for all guests, Guardians of the Galaxy still comes in with a whopping score of 21 points. And I am still in shock about some of the things that beat it. Top 3, and guess where I am? You guessed right, it's Norway. Perhaps a not so shocking one, Frozen Ever After has landed in 3rd place. This is a Frozen themed dark boat ride that takes you through a little story of you visiting Elsa's ice palace after the events of the first Frozen movie. It is very cool. You get to see the sisters in all their glory, Olaf a couple of times. This ride has landed with a whopping 5 out of 5 on theming. Not only is the queue super immersive to make you feel like you're really walking through Arendelle, but the entire ride has really excellent theming and set design. As for the tech, it is a 4 out of 5. Though this is just a boat ride like some of the ones we've passed by already, like Grand Fiesta Tour, it does have the newest animatronics. The way they move is incredibly fluid, and they do have projection faces, making it look a little bit like your favorite characters are standing right in front of you. Any Disney princess movie kind of has that nostalgia factor, even the newer ones. On top of that, it is incredibly popular. So for that nostalgia and popularity score, it is going to get a 4 out of 5. This one is definitely a popular one. If you have Genie Plus, it's the one to prioritize, or it's one to rope drop or head to right at the end of your park day. Accessibility-wise, Frozen Ever After is pretty up there. The whole family can enjoy it. It does not have a height requirement. However, you do have to transfer from a wheelchair if you're a wheelchair user. So that does make it a 4 out of 5 instead of a full 5, because those who are not able to transfer out of their wheelchair cannot. On the must-do scale, this one is going to land at a 5 out of 5. Most people prioritize this as one of the top few must-dos in all of EPCOT, so it's certainly going to be up there. Frozen is going to land in our top 3 at 22 points, just 1 point over Guardians of the Galaxy to edge it out. Great work on it, Elsa. I assume you built this ride by hand and possibly by snow magic. On number 2. Coming in 2nd place is none other than the park icon herself, Spaceship Earth. I know, 2nd place, not 1st. Spaceship Earth is a slow-moving dark ride that takes you through the history of communication from the caveman age all the way up to the future. For our theming and experience category, Spaceship Earth does get a 5 out of 5. There are a couple reasons for this. Although the queue isn't all that exciting, it's just this outdoor area, it is inside the park icon. Spaceship Earth is the EPCOT ball. It's the weenie of the park, weenie being the big centerpiece of a theme park. And it is the weenie. You can't really beat that. On top of that, the experience is much loved. It is edutainment at its finest, a journey through the past and then a fun interactive portion into your own future. As for the ride system and text, so you've got that classic Disney dark ride, the always moving ride vehicle. On top of that, there are animatronics all through the attraction, lots of different elements to build the scenes, and you have that interactive portion at the end, which is very exciting. So there's a lot of variety in this ride. The tech used is pretty various, so though it's not that new, it is still pretty cool, getting it a 4 out of 5. Spaceship Earth was all set up for a refurbishment back in 2019 and early 2020. In fact, it's rumored that the refurbishment was set to start in early 2020. However, of course, with the pandemic, that has been tabled indefinitely as of right now. That refurbishment is a pretty regular thing here at Spaceship Earth. Spaceship Earth has gotten a few over the years just to keep it updated, since you do journey into the future, and the future and what we know about it is always changing. So I'm really excited if that refurbishment does come to be. I really hope that it does. It would include new narration, and what they also teased about it is a story light that would help guide your view of the earlier scenes in the ride. Now, if you know anything about EPCOT, it's probably no surprise that for the nostalgia and popularity factor, Spaceship Earth is getting a 5 out of 5. Interestingly though, you won't see super long lines for this ride. That's because it can move a lot of people through it pretty quickly. So even though it is one of the most popular rides in EPCOT, so many people can get on the ride at one time that it moves a lot of people through, and the lines don't really have time to build up. All right, now let's talk a little bit about accessibility. The accessibility score on this ride is going to be a 4 out of 5. That is because it does require wheelchair users to transfer from their wheelchair to the ride vehicle, and not everyone is capable of doing that, but the whole family can ride it and there is no height requirement. So, going to be a 4 out of 5. And finally, let's talk must-do-ness. This one is a 5 out of 5 on the must-do table. It's in the park icon, it's an opening day EPCOT attraction, and it's beloved by many Disney fans. Absolutely a must-do. That leaves Spaceship Earth with a final score of 23 points, just 1 point below our winner. And if you use process of elimination, you probably already know what it is, and you're probably already yelling at me in the comments, but it's just the science and the math, okay? Let's go to number 1. A shocking contender made the position of number 1. So I am back in the France Pavilion. That's right, according to our metric, in first place is REMY'S Ratatouille Adventure, a trackless dark ride that takes you down to rat size to explore Gusteau's kitchen and even up to Remy's own restaurant. For theming, this one absolutely has to get a 5. Not only is the queue immaculately themed, many of the sets are amazing inside of the ride, but this ride actually opened with an entire new land, an extension of the France Pavilion that centers around Remy and his story. There are Easter eggs to find that reference Remy's Ratatouille Adventure. You can look up into the sky and see the Gusteau's sign shining. It is a beautiful extension to the park, and perhaps make this the best themed ride in EPCOT, just because, I mean, look at this. Are we not in the streets of Paris right now? The ride is trackless, which is one of the newest ride systems that Disney has developed. That means your car isn't on a track at all and drives around of its own accord. That, accompanied with some of the haptic elements, the smells, the temperature elements of this ride, means that it is certainly a 4 out of 5 on that tech scale. Not necessarily the most technologically advanced, but very impressive, and the ride system is very cool. Though Remy's Ratatouille Adventure is not that nostalgic of a ride, it is brand new, and Ratatouille, it's a beloved Pixar film, but maybe in 10 years it'll be more nostalgic. It is one of the most popular rides in EPCOT. In fact, it's the first one you should prioritize with Genie Plus, which does make it a 5 out of 5 on the popularity scale. As accessibility goes, Remy's Ratatouille Adventure does have wheelchair access. You can see it right there on the sign, which makes it one of the most accessible rides in Disney World. That's a 5 out of 5. And as for must-do-ness, as one of the newest rides in EPCOT and one that the whole family can enjoy, Ratatouille is getting that 5 out of 5 rating on the must-do scale. A lot of people consider it a must on their EPCOT day. I don't know if it'll stay that way as the ride gets a little older, but that certainly is the case now. And with that, Remy comes to an almost perfect score of 24. Whether that'll be the same in a year, we'll have to see. The other thing is this one clearly just edges out Spaceship Earth just by 1, and it's on that accessibility front. You don't have to get out of your wheelchair to ride this ride, and that makes this a better ride than Spaceship Earth since more people can enjoy it. This is certainly not my favorite ride. It's certainly not what I would have guessed was going to come in as the best ride in EPCOT, but a very interesting top pick, and I totally get it. You can't fight the math. Let me know in the comments if Remy being number 1 and beating out Spaceship Earth and Guardians and Frozen has surprised you, made you angry. Let me know what your number 1 pick would be. And if you like this video, go ahead and like and subscribe. And now go watch our Genie Plus challenge in Magic Kingdom. See you there.